Chapter 5 Daniel's Journey. We appear in the last years of the 1900s, the city of Bangkok, Thailand. The humid air causes beads of sweat on Daniel's brow. He is in a deserted alleyway. He walks towards the light of the nearby street. People are bustling about as fast as the thick breeze allows them. Bangkok is a city that expends at night a great deal of the power it creates during the day. This makes the persons of this time and place very saturated with the ethereal energy of the soul. The mind, however, is greatly worshipped and is allowed to guide the destination of the soul's will, on occasion to unsavory locations. Daniel walks through the crowded streets and absorbs much of the wasted energy from the people. Walking south, he crosses through the market area that is all but closed for the day. A woman is closing up a small cart that had been filled earlier in the day. Now, only one piece of fruit remains, and the woman's child is given it to eat. As Daniel approaches the cart, the woman snatches the fruit from her child and offers it to the hungry traveler. The child begins to reach for the fruit, and his mother yells one syllable at his face. The child cringes and walks a few feet away. Daniel lifts his hand from his pocket and hands a baht as payment for the food. The woman thanks him and takes the currency. Daniel walks and hands the fruit to the child. The woman stares at him as he walks away. Within the hour, he has walked through downtown and reaches the Biosen building. It is 6 stories high and covering less than an acre. I can understand Joachim's want to move his headquarters to the other location, but this is 2 years before he even decided to do so. Daniel walks up the steps and into the main lobby, holding the medal within his robe. He walks up to the front desk. The security guard sees him as no threat. "Can I help you?" "Yes, you can get me someone who is in charge. I have something that would interest him greatly," Daniel says. "What would that be?" the guard asks. He slides the medal out of his right sleeve and into his hand. The guard's position becomes defensive, and Daniel can see his uneasiness. It's a medal of such strength that it is impervious to damage from any other substance. He lays it on the counter. "This is indestructible." The hand of the guard runs over the attenuated top of the sheet. His eyes meet Daniel's, and I can see skepticism behind them. He lifts the flashlight from his right hip and flips it in his hand. The handle is made of iron. "Indestructible, huh?" the guard says, bringing down the butt of the flashlight. The tool cracks open and spills out 4 batteries. The guard sits down and picks up the phone on the desk. He dials few numbers and speaks one word into the phone. Joachim has been watching on the security camera, and Dave is already on his way down. Joachim tells his employee this as soon as he picks up the phone. The guard hangs up the phone and relays the message to Daniel. The elevator doors open, and Dave steps out. I am overjoyed to see the face of my Axis again. Alas, it is not he. It is Dave, as he was before I had ever known he existed during this turning of the millennium. He walks quickly behind the desk and examines the flashlight. Then he looks at the medal, running his hands along it. He jerks back and lifts it. He shakes it and gets a feel for the dimensions and weight. He then walks to the far side of the room, where the wall consists of exposed cement brick 3 feet by 3 feet. He props the metal against the wall and walks back to the desk. He asks for and is handed the guard's gun. He takes aim and fires 3 shots at it. The bullets do not dent or scratch it. 2 of them shatter on impact. 1 ricochets off it and hits a light in the ceiling. There is a spark as the fixture falls to the floor. David returns the gun to the guard and looks at Daniel. "Name your price," Dave states. "This object itself is not for sale. The means to create your own should be what you desire," Daniel answers. Dave believes himself to be up against a shrewd haggler, and they trade the opinions behind the words above 3 or 4 times until the elevator doors open again. Joachim walks out, and the bickering that Daniel seems to be enjoying stops. Joachim introduces himself, and Daniel gives his name as they shake hands. Joachim brings the bargaining table to a new level, offering Daniel a job within his company that would take care of him for life. Daniel is intrigued by this. "I thank you for the generous offer, but I'm well suited for life. If I were to give you just the material itself, you could dissect it scientifically and find yourself standing on the shoulders of a giant. Were I to give you the knowledge of how to do so, your test of worthiness would be to make use of that knowledge." "What do you want as payment?" Joachim inquires, giving in. "That will be for us to settle at a later time. Right now, we should make haste, as there is much work to do." It takes 3 days for Daniel to educate Joachim and David as to the process of making the metal. They stay on the 5th floor of the building for that time. By the 2nd day, Dave has finally understood the mathematics needed to project the path of certain particles to form the iridium molecule. David locks himself to his desk and begins a large computation that would prove if he has really learned anything. Joachim is still studying, but doesn't push himself quite as hard to learn, as he will be the one funding the project. He is, instead, dreaming up ways to collect, generate, and store the large amounts of energy he would need. During this time, on the 2nd day, Daniel falls asleep. His thoughts whirl and twist, and I can see the essence of his subconscious. He dreams. There is no story behind it, just images and impulses. There is a recurring theme, and it, animals. Dozens of different species that have been wiped off the earth by humanity's claim to superiority and the arrogance therein. Although, for a period of time, humans had constructed an endangered species list that was respected by all nations, by the 3000s, humanity no longer had such a list, and many of the creatures on it were pushed into extinction by the drive to survive during times of the global tri-wars. Humans hunted out of necessity in a land that was inhabitable even to the most adaptable species of insects. It was a purging of life forms deemed lesser than humanity. Daniel, having never witnessed some of those animals long gone, watches in his dreams as they run, fly, and swim with natural beauty. This dream state remains with him for the better part of 6 hours. He rises to find his student had completed the computation. David has gotten it right, showing that he has gained the understanding of the sciences needed to form the foundation of the prototype. Joachim enters and repeats his offer of employment. You would have no need for me now. Have faith in your friend's abilities. I trust that Dave can do the job, but you've given us immense knowledge. If you are to ever need anything, feel free to come to me, Joachim says. My compensation would be that you use what I've given you with wisdom. I thank you for your generosity, but I must be on my way. Your kindness will be rewarded when I return to you one day. It is you who will need something from me. Daniel nods at both men and walks out of the room to the elevator. Joachim, more than impressed by this display of character, watches on the security monitor as Daniel enters the elevator. When it reaches the ground floor, the doors open, but no one is in the car. Daniel has burst himself to the exact same place that Joker had burst from after he killed his original persona. Carla sits on the floor, holding the body of Jason. Joachim is staring very aggressively at Daniel, or rather, he was doing so at that Joker. But Joker has vanished, and this familiar face and figure is now in his place. Hello, my friend, Daniel says with a warm smile. Joachim is able to quell his rage. You killed him! Carla screams at Daniel, expecting to see that Joker. She is stunned by this man who stands before her. She finds it difficult to adjust to the sudden change and cannot quiet her anger as well as Joachim has. The tears on her cheeks stop rolling towards the ground. She is confused. I'm going to need you with me, Daniel says to Joachim. He then turns to Carla. Worry not. We shall return soon, he says, placing his right arm on Joachim's shoulder. They disappear in a flash of light. Where are we? Joachim asks, looking around. The breeze that swirls around him is cool and lightly moist. He can hear the roar of a sea to the south. The city is very commercialized, yet retains some architecture that is clearly not of this century. Stone buildings that stood to bear witness to a civilization that gave way many years ago are shadowed by skyscrapers boasting the city's successful tourism industry. He knows that he is in a Greek city, but he knows not which one. We are in Athens, at the mouth of the Aegean Sea, Daniel answers. He waits for Joachim to adjust to his new surrounding. 20 years have passed, and your absence for those 20 years has affected the world in such a way as to alter the timeline and change certain events. I plan to return you to the time you left, and this alternate reality will fade back into nothingness. Why have you brought me here? To teach you something extremely important that you seemed to have missed throughout your elongated life. Daniel begins walking, stunned that Daniel knows his age. Joachim follows him. You have yet to understand the essence of love. Untrue, Joachim protests. I have felt love. I have given love. I have experienced more love in my life than most people even imagine in theirs. If you truly understood love, I would not be here with you. They walk in silence until Daniel is convinced that Joachim is ready to listen. Love has nothing to do with trusting a person with your true self. Love has nothing to do with tolerance for those who wrong you. Love goes beyond the boundaries of logic and other forms of rational thought. It allows us to be the imperfect beings that we are and enjoy existing. Most of all, love can be given to another person with a rate of acceptance greater than any other emotion. People want love, not trust. They want love, not money. Love is the one emotion that brings real excitement to interaction. The misuse of love created social systems that corroded the human spirit for centuries. The misunderstanding of love's true meaning led to religions of conformity that drained humans generation after generation. Love is the common ground of all people. It is the basis from which our evolved consciousness arises. If there is a common goal for all humans to achieve, it would be to love and to be loved. So, what is the true essence of love? Joachim asks. It is a form of energy that surpasses any other occurring in nature. It is the most valuable of all human qualities, an asset that boosts our awareness and allows us to follow our individual path to happiness. He stops walking and points up to the two hotels that are in front of them. They stand across a two-way street from the buildings. The road they are walking along runs between the structures. On the fourth floor of each, the corner rooms are occupied. The light falls out of the windows, and Joachim sees an older version of Carla in the room on the right. She paces back and forth in front of the window. In the building on the left, he sees another image of Carla, but with subtle differences. He assumes this to be her twin sister, Lucy. Daniel turns to Joachim. Dig, he says. When you disappeared 20 years ago, Carla waited for as long as she could, and then she went searching for you. She searched Edmund's residence and found nothing. So she hopped a flight to Los Angeles and then headed back to Thailand. It took her 3 weeks to complete the trip to the Equatorial Biosyn headquarters on Sumatra, and when she arrived, she was greeted by open arms from the staff that recognized her. They accepted her, and she lived quite contented for many months. When it was finally agreed that neither you nor David seemed likely to return, the employees asked Carla to fill the position of president. She did so, and worked very hard to keep the company running and profiting, unaware of her sister's life on the other side of the world. Lucy had worked her way through college and became the journalist she had sought to become. She worked at 3 affiliated press papers and then was hired by the New York Times. She had uncovered the greatest government conspiracy in 2004 when she came across proof that the American government was halting the furthering of domestic technology as well as limiting the import of what was then called high technology. The elected officials named by her claimed they did so for the good of the nation, that America had gained too much technology over too short a period and needed time to adjust. Perhaps they were right, but that is of no matter. You see, after doing that story, Lucy decided to venture beyond her country's borders and find out just what the extent of humanity's technology was. She set out to Europe and hopped from nation to nation to see what the world had to offer. After moving through France, Germany, the Czech Republic, and Hungary, she stopped in her ancestors' homeland of Romania. She spent some time in the capital, Bucharest, and the trip turned into a vacation. She cut south through Bulgaria and entered into Greece. Carla had managed to keep the Biosyn network of scientists, engineers, and scholars connected and had expanded the company to over 200 offices around the globe. Biosyn boasts the first prosthetic internal organs, as well as a construction method that revolutionized the industry worldwide. She was on the cutting edge, the queen of technology. She decided to treat herself and took a well-deserved vacation. She flew to India, from there to Turkey. Northwest by car led her to the Bosporus Strait, which she crossed to Istanbul. West and then south and east, hooking around the peninsula and landing in Athens. They both look like they don't know the other is right across the street, Joachim says. Be patient and watch, Daniel replies. The two men look up at the windows. They can see the twins looking out into the night, both wearing the same blank expression. Carla turns her head to the right, looking at the solid wall beyond which the outside is. Lucy turns her head to the left, looking at the wall that separates her from the fourth-story winds. Joachim feels a chill run down his back. What are they doing? They are pushing the boundaries of their emotions. They both know the other is close by. They can both feel the other's presence, and they both look in the direction that this feeling is coming from. It is the love they feel for each other that causes them to act this way. And it is that lack of trust in that love that keeps them ignorant of their current closeness. If they were humans equally evolved to the point humans are in my time, they would follow that instinctual love and find each other on the streets of this city. The belief is not there, so neither is the energy that these emotions produce. Are you telling me emotions actually produce an energy? Joachim asks. Right now, if the energy between the twins could be activated, it could power this city for up to 10 years, Daniel replies. Then we should alert them to each other's presence, Joachim says. It would be a futile action, as this world will cease to be once we leave. Besides, the moment has passed. Daniel points to the windows, and Joachim watches as the two women shake their heads and walk further into the room, out of sight. Joachim looks up and watches as they close the curtains and turn lights off. He turns suddenly to Daniel. What are you trying to show me here? How tragic life can be? Joachim asks. No. Daniel speaks with a voice that calms the man before him. I am trying to show you the meaning of the love that is embedded in us all. This should have proven to you that love is a tangible energy, a power in this, the shared reality, that can be harnessed even if it is not understood. It begins with the opening of your own love to the world. I have loved. I have the descendants to prove it. Procreation is neither a sign nor symbol of love. It is a necessity of life so that the species may continue, which brings me to the next lesson. He begins to walk in the direction they had come from. Joachim follows, listening to Daniel's words. Love is not an emotion that is limited to human use. Granted, we have access to more of it than other creatures, but animals do experience it on some levels. It was found that every particle that makes up our world exhibits some form of love. Inanimate objects produce the lowest charge, the reason behind which could be their very existence, even without consciousness. Animals show love, but it is a very selfish emotion for them, spent far quicker on themselves than they can even generate at times. Plants give off a wide variety of weak emotions. Their spectrum is almost as large as ours. It is only us, the ones with the wide-level intelligence, that limit this naturally occurring energy. We doubt ourselves and prolong our progress. We fear for ourselves and act out in destroying others. He pauses as they walk, his eyes filling with a sadness that he chases from his mind. I have told you this in hopes of recruiting you in righting some of these wrongs. They stop walking. Daniel turns to face him. What do you need me to do? Joachim asks. Daniel steps closer to him. You must return to your station at the helm of the global company you have built. I need you to use this vast technological sub-society to complete a series of tasks that will allow us to resurrect the souls of countless earthly beings that have been exterminated throughout the ages. The blinding light wraps around them, and they are moving through time back to the moment they had left from. During the burst, Daniel superimposes a portion of his intellect into Joachim's conscious mind. This knowledge will allow Joachim to see the steps to fulfill this plan. When they reconverge and are met with the confused eyes of Carla, Joachim slumps into the nearest chair to process all the knowledge given to him. Daniel kneels down on the floor in front of Carla, who is still saddened by the loss of her friend. It is more than right that we grieve for those no longer with us, Daniel says. We would not be true to ourselves if we didn't miss them. Although we may never look upon them with these eyes or hear their voices with these ears, we can still feel their life force living vicariously through us. With every thought of a person deceased, every memory of time shared with them, we are keeping their spirit alive inside of us. When we speak their names, we are allowing them a limited return to this plane of existence. You see, life does not end with death. Death is something we must pass through if we are to reach the next level of existence. We travel up and down through the many layers of many worlds until we no longer fear silence and stillness. And when we long for the peace of being nothingness, we recede to that from which we came, and that which we will come from again. Carla bows her head, and the flow of tears starts again. Daniel places a gentle hand on her shoulder. Her emotions are strong for a woman of her time, and Daniel pulls in the ripple energy her sadness produces. The weight of her mourning is lifted from her soul, and the saddened expression on her face slowly fades. Daniel converts the energy and magnifies it for his own use. The cellular phone inside Joachim's jacket begins to ring. Carla looks in his direction as a flash of light glides over the room. When she looks back, Daniel is gone.